My husband's mother stole my identity to fund their secret investment scheme. They used my name, my credit, and even my photo. The worst part? My husband helped her do it. I only found out after the bank called about a $430,000 loan in my name. I'm a corporate lawyer, and I never signed anything. But this time, I'm not staying quiet. It happened on a Tuesday. I was wrapping up a deposition when the call came in. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Holloway? We need to verify some documents related to your investment account and a real estate loan. I didn't own any new property. I didn't authorize any investments. And yet, their records showed my signature, my email, my ID. I felt the blood drain from my face. I couldn't breathe. My hand was shaking when I hung up. Then I called my best friend, also a lawyer, and I said the one sentence that would change everything. They forged my name, my husband, his mother. They planned this together. And, just like that, I stopped being the good wife and started being the problem they should have never underestimated. I met Thomas during my second year of law school while I was interning at a corporate finance firm. He was the only one at the summer mixer who didn't feel the need to brag. Quiet, observant, the kind of man who asked questions and actually listened. I felt safe around him. And for someone like me raised to solve problems before I could even name my own needs, that mattered. His family was old money. Not the flashy kind. The kind that wore tailored khakis and called manipulation tradition. His mother, Evelyn Holloway, was the matriarch in every sense. Elegant. Always composed. She'd mastered the art of making every suggestion feel like your own idea. When we got engaged, Evelyn welcomed me in sort of. She never said anything overt. But it was in the way she offered to help with our wedding guest list and quietly removed half of my friends. The way she'd drop by our apartment unannounced, rearrange the kitchen drawers, and say, "It's just more efficient this way." I told myself it wasn't a big deal. I was marrying Thomas, not his mother. Thomas rarely intervened. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't neglectful. But his silence was heavy, always lingering. Whenever Evelyn crossed a line, he'd just sigh and say, "She means well." Looking back, I think that was the first red flag I ignored. After we got married, I focused on my career. I worked long hours, made partner at 33, built a reputation for being meticulous, ethical, and unshakable under pressure. Meanwhile, Thomas bounced between startups and passion projects. Evelyn called it entrepreneurial. I called it unstable, but I never judged him for that. I just kept working, saving, building. I believed that's what partnership meant, balancing each other out. It wasn't until the third time Evelyn asked to borrow my laptop that something in me paused. She said it was for checking flight confirmations. It felt harmless, like always. But then there were other moments. A spreadsheet left open on our desktop, full of bank names and funding rounds. A printer left running with pages I didn't recognize. Thomas brushing it off with, "That's just something mom's helping a friend with." I let it go, like I always had. And then came Madison. Not my sister. Thomas's cousin. She moved into Evelyn's guest house last spring, just until she gets back on her feet. Within weeks, she was managing a small investor group Evelyn had started for family and close friends. I was never invited to any meetings, but Evelyn mentioned more than once that it was so wonderful to have someone like Madison to handle the admin stuff. The admin stuff. I didn't pay attention at the time, but I remember the look Evelyn gave Thomas when she said it. Like a signal. Like something had just clicked between them. Then, one night, I came home to find Evelyn sitting in our kitchen. She smiled, warm as ever. "Thomas said you're looking into buying a second property. I hope you let me help with the paperwork. I'm great with details." I froze. I had never said anything about buying another property. Neither had Thomas, at least, not to me. But I laughed it off. Smiled. Changed the subject. Because that's what I was trained to do. De-escalate. Smooth things over. Be the woman who keeps the family peace. If only I'd paid attention then. Because 2 months later, I'd get that call. And the moment I heard the words $430,000 mortgage application under your name, everything fell into place. Every borrowed device. Every offhand comment. Every time Evelyn offered to take something off my plate. They weren't accidents. They were the blueprint. And I was the foundation they were quietly building on. But this time, I wouldn't be the one cleaning up the mess. It started with a birthday card. From my husband. Or at least, I thought it was. The handwriting on the envelope looked like his blocky, rushed, but the message inside was oddly formal. To my partner in life and finance. Thanks for building the empire with me. Empire? We didn't share accounts. We didn't even share goals, if I'm honest. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was a joke. A poorly timed one. I tossed the card in a drawer and moved on. A week later, I noticed a new credit inquiry on my email alerts. I hadn't applied for anything. I checked again. Same last 4 digits of my social security number. Same home address. Thomas said it must have been an error. Companies run soft pulls all the time, he said. You're probably just on some mailing list. But then it happened again. Another inquiry. This time from a mortgage lender I'd never heard of. I asked him about it. He shrugged. No idea. His voice didn't even flinch. But something in his eyes started. I changed all my passwords that night. 2 weeks later, Evelyn invited us to dinner. Just the 3 of us. She cooked salmon with lemon dill glaze, the same one she made when she was trying to soften bad news. She poured wine, made small talk, then leaned in across the table. When, I've been meaning to tell you, Madison's fund is doing so well. She even brought in a few of my golf club friends as angel investors. I nodded, unsure why she was telling me that. You should feel proud, she added, smile fixed. It's your good name that gave them confidence. My hand tightened around the glass. What do you mean, my name? Oh, sweetheart. She laughed gently. I just meant your reputation, your success. It's inspiring to others. You're practically a brand. I excused myself to the bathroom. I didn't throw up, but I thought about it. The next day, I stopped by Thomas's home office while he was out. It wasn't locked. It never was. On his desk, I found a folder labeled Riverset, pending docs. Inside were rough drafts of pitch decks, balance sheets, and investor profiles. One of them had my name and a title, Legal Advisor and Strategic Oversight. My photo was there too, cropped from the Rothman and Lindley website. Underneath it, an email address I didn't recognize, but close enough to mine, g.holloway@gmail.com. My stomach dropped. I printed everything, every page. That night, I confronted Thomas. He looked tired, annoyed. Why are you going through my things? I held up the folder. Explain this. He ran a hand through his hair. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? He sighed. Mom said it was just a formality. It's for optics. No one actually thinks you're involved. She used my name. She used your credentials, he corrected, which you weren't even using for anything at the time. I stared at him. That was the moment something inside me broke. It wasn't just Evelyn. It wasn't just Madison. It was Thomas too. He wasn't confused. He wasn't caught off guard. He was in on it. And I realized something even worse. He thought I'd be okay with it. That I'd let it go. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about identity theft. This was betrayal. Slow, meticulous, and sanctioned by the people I thought loved me most. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the middle of reviewing a merger contract when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. But something, instinct maybe, made me answer. Mrs. Holloway? This is Jared from Silverline Financial. I'm calling to verify a few final details on the Glenridge property refinance under the Riverset investment account. I blinked. Excuse me. He repeated it. Glenridge. Riverset. My name as the listed cosigner. The refinance total, $430,000. I stood up from my chair without realizing it. I never authorized that loan, I said, each word sharp. There was a pause. But your name and signature are on all the documents. Your ID was submitted through secure upload twice. I swallowed hard. Can you send me the paperwork? Of course. I'll email it to the address on file, g.holloway@consulting@gmail.com. No, I cut him off. That's not my email. Another pause. Then we may have a problem. He sent the documents to my real account, and there it was. Page after page. My name. My signature, almost perfect, but not quite. The loop at the end of the G. The slight slant on the H. Close enough to fool a stranger. Not close enough to fool me. I forwarded everything to Alex, my closest friend since undergrad, now a senior fraud litigator. Within minutes, he was at my apartment. I didn't have to say much. Just handed him my laptop. He flipped through the files slowly, jaw tightening. They forged everything. This is federal, Gwen. I nodded, my voice barely audible. I think they've been planning this for months. Alex looked at me steady, calm, deadly focused. Then we build the case. We go after every signature, every false claim, every dime. I looked at the screen again. My own name, used like a mask. And in that moment, I wasn't devastated. I was done. Done excusing. Done smiling. Done pretending this family wasn't quietly feeding off me. They'd built the scheme in my shadow. Now I was stepping into the light. Alex stayed until almost midnight that night. We sat side by side on my living room floor, surrounded by printed documents, 2 laptops, and a half-eaten box of takeout I couldn't taste. He had that look on his face, the one I'd seen back in law school during finals week, right before he dismantled an entire mock case in front of a tenured professor. Quiet. Calculated. Lethal. This isn't just about the Glenridge loan, he said, tapping the screen. There's at least 2 other accounts tied to your name. He pulled up the files. A personal loan, $75,000 opened 3 months ago through a fintech lender in Nevada. And a business line of credit for something called E. Holloway Holdings, LLC. I didn't own a business. I didn't even know the company existed. He looked at me. You ever signed for any of this? I just stared at the floor. No. He nodded and kept digging. Each click pulled up something worse. A fake tax filing under my social. An investment contract with my name listed as a managing partner. 3 email accounts I didn't create, but that used slight variations of mine enough to pass casual scrutiny. I remembered the birthday card. The phrasing. To my partner in life and finance. It hadn't been sweet. It had been strategic. They weren't just stealing from me. They were building an identity around me. A whole persona, polished, credible, useful. Alex started compiling a digital folder. PDFs, screenshots, IP address logs, flagged signatures. He even traced 2 of the fake emails back to Evelyn's IP address, one sent from the same network where I'd once FaceTimed Thomas during a visit to his parents' house. They used your laptop, didn't they? Alex asked quietly. I nodded. Twice. Evelyn said hers was being repaired. And your home desktop? Thomas set it up. He said he was upgrading the firewall. Alex exhaled, eyes narrowing. They planted something. I'd bet on it. He reached into his bag, pulled out a clean USB and loaded an installer. It was software to run a forensics scan, the kind our firm usually reserved for corporate internal theft cases. While it ran, he looked at me. You ready to go to war? I didn't answer right away. Because war isn't always a dramatic decision. Sometimes it's quiet. Heavy. Like realizing no one is coming to apologize. I'm ready, I finally said. But I'm not going to yell. Or throw things. I'm going to be very, very thorough. He smiled. That's the Gwen I know. The scan finished. The results weren't pretty. There was a keylogger installed on both my desktop and the laptop I let Evelyn borrow. It had been running for over 4 months. That explained the near-perfect signatures. The copied emails, even access to my investment accounts. They know your schedule, your passwords, your financials, Alex said. They didn't just steal your name. They studied it. My hands were trembling again. But not from fear. From focus. What's our first step? I asked. We freeze your credit reports. Immediately. All 3 bureaus. He handed me the phone. Then, we notify your firm's compliance team. If this ever touches Rothman and Lindley's name, they'll need to know you're a victim. Not a participant. I swallowed. That part hurt. But he was right. I spent a decade building my career. They could destroy it in weeks and smile while doing it. Then came the last step. We go confront them, Alex said. But not yet. Not without leverage. So we waited. 2 days. Then 3. I kept showing up at work. Calm. Professional. Pretending I wasn't unraveling my life behind the scenes. Alex reached out to a cybersecurity contact. They confirmed activity from Evelyn's network on 6 fake accounts. He also found a shell corporation linked to Thomas. And a list of investors friends of Evelyn's from her country club. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just personal. It was organized. And it was still active. I looked at the evidence one last time. Then packed it neatly into a binder. They wanted to use my credibility as a shield? Fine. Now they'd find out what it's like to be on the other side of a woman who knows the law and has absolutely nothing left to lose. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just showed up, Saturday evening right before dinner. The house looked the same as always. Tidy hedges. Porch lights already on. But walking up the steps felt like approaching a courtroom. Evelyn opened the door, wearing pearls and a cashmere sweater like we were about to sit down for a Hallmark Christmas. Gwen, she smiled, like nothing had happened. Thomas is in the kitchen. Come in, dear. I didn't move. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the binder. I'd rather we start here, I said, placing it on the foyer table. Before dinner. She blinked. What's this? Proof, I said simply. Of identity theft. Fraud. Wire fraud. Tax violations. All committed using my name. Thomas appeared in the hallway, eyes narrowing. Gwen, What are you doing? I turned to him. Showing your mother what happens when you assume silence means consent. Evelyn's voice dropped. You're overreacting. We were trying to help you. Build something bigger together. No, I said. You were building something for yourselves. And you used me to do it. She opened the binder with shaky hands. Her face tightened as she flipped through the pages: fake emails, forged tax forms, investor lists, IP address logs. Thomas leaned against the wall, jaw clenched. You could ruin everything, he muttered. You already did, I snapped. You just thought I wouldn't fight back. Then Evelyn's tone shifted. She reached for my arm. We're family. I stepped back. Exactly. And that's why I'm here in person instead of sending the police first. They went quiet. I'll be filing formal charges on Monday, I said. This is your chance to lawyer up. Do not contact me again. Thomas said nothing. Evelyn's eyes glassed over, but I didn't care. I turned, walked to the door, and paused just long enough to finish it. You built an empire on my name. Now watch what happens when the name fights back. Then I walked away. No tears. No apologies. Just the sound of their perfect little world starting to crack behind me. They didn't think I'd really go through with it. Monday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the state's Financial Crimes Division. By noon, I was sitting across from 2 federal investigators in a glass-walled conference room. I handed over everything: the binder, the flash drive, the forensics report, the emails. They didn't need convincing. By Thursday, subpoenas were issued. By Friday, accounts were frozen. And on Sunday, I got a call. Miss Holloway, the agent said, calm but firm, we'd like you to be present when we speak to your husband and mother-in-law. Not for legal reasons. Just so they'd see that I wasn't bluffing. We met at Evelyn's country club. Neutral ground. Public. Controlled. Evelyn walked in wearing oversized sunglasses and a silk scarf, like it was just another brunch. Thomas followed behind, pale and sweating. The agents introduced themselves. They explained the scope of the investigation: interstate wire fraud, identity theft, unauthorized financial management. Then they turned to me. Do you recognize the individuals responsible for these actions? I looked them both in the eye. Yes, I said. I know exactly who they are. Evelyn barely blinked. Thomas looked like he might throw up. The agents handed over paperwork. Seizure notices. Court orders. Frozen assets. Pending charges. I stood. This didn't have to happen, I told them. You had 100 chances to stop. You didn't. Thomas opened his mouth, but no words came out. You used me, I added, then expected me to stay quiet. Neither of them looked at me as I walked away. Later that evening, I sat in my apartment, lights off, phone silent. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. It wasn't peace exactly. Not yet. But it was the space where peace could begin. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean. Like someone had finally opened a window in a room I didn't know was suffocating me. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just choosing not to let someone rewrite your name for their gain. And in that silence, I finally felt free. A week after the sentencing, I received a letter. It was handwritten, postmarked from a women's correctional facility. The sender? Evelyn. Inside was a single sentence. You were never supposed to fight back. I folded the letter and slid it into a folder labeled Evidence, Emotional. Then I got to work. With Alex and a few colleagues from Rothman and Lindley, we launched a new program. Reclaim and Rise Legal and Emotional Advocacy for Victims of Family-Based Financial Abuse. Within the first month, over 400 people reached out. Teachers, veterans, single moms, widowed seniors. Each one with a story that started with trust and ended in devastation. One woman, Marlene, called crying after her own daughter took out a loan in her name. I feel so stupid, she whispered. I told her the same thing I remind myself every morning. Trusting someone you love isn't stupid, but staying silent once you know the truth? That's what destroys you. At night, I still walk past the empty guest room that once held stacks of fake paperwork. And I remember. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Because I finally understand. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who protects your name when no one's watching. Who doesn't build their dreams on your silence. Who doesn't use your success as camouflage for their lies. I lost a family, but I built something better. Something real. And this time, it has my name on it because I chose it. Not because they stole it.